christiangeekcentral.com.
Well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about Mythica, A Quest for Heroes? Stick around and find out. All right. Thank you very much, Asher, for what was that? That was the song from
Oblivion.
Skyrim. No. Oblivion.
No Skyrim.
It's Elder Scrolls 4
Oblivion. No Skyrim involved.
That's right. No Skyrim involved. All right. So I'm Peter Franson from Spirit Blade Productions and christiangeekcentral.com. And this is my son Asher joining me, especially for this review. We're enjoying some time off. This is our uncut review of Mythica, A Quest for Heroes. The synopsis on IMDb reads, stuck in a life of indentured servitude, Merrick dreams of becoming a wizard. When she meets a beautiful priestess, Tila, in need of help, Merrick escapes her master and puts together a team of adventurers and embarks on an epic quest to free Tila's sister from a vicious ogre. I have some weird associations with some of these names. They spell it differently, but the main character's name is Merrick. It's a female character, and in the audio drama trilogy I produced a number of years ago, the main character is a male, and his name is Merrick, spelled differently. And then Tila is the name of, like, the main female protagonist in the Masters of the Universe. So, do you remember that character name being from Masters of the Universe?
What?
So for some reason they use that name here too, and so I have mixed feelings and weird feelings.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, totally. So anyway, let's talk. Well, first let me just get your general reactions to this movie. Did you like it? Did you not like it? What do you think?
I think it was this.
Oh,
whatever your face was.
2 thumbs up with gaping smile. That picture that I take of myself and use it in reviews.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, that's me.
Oh, good. Yeah, I like it too. This is the second time I've seen it. I've never actually reviewed this movie before, but I've talked about it in our Summer of Free segments a couple of times. It's a 5-movie series, the Mythica series, that starts with Mythica, A Quest for Heroes. And so we're just going to focus on the first movie, but I think the thoughts that at least I'm going to share generally apply to all the movies in this series. So, yeah, so what did you think about the basic story? Did you find the story interesting?
Yes, I did, actually. And also, I just want to add, the first movie was pretty good, but I just want to say I think Lord of the Rings is better. I think it's still better, yeah. Yeah,
I think so too. What would you say is, like, better about Lord of the Rings?
Well, they put a lot more feeling into the movies.
What do you mean by feeling?
Yeah, well, is it okay if I spoil this?
There's gonna be a little bit of spoilers for spoil for what, Lord of the Rings, or
Lord of the Rings.
You can totally spoil Lord of the Rings if you haven't seen the classic Lord of the Rings trilogy. Then you're out of luck. So yeah, go ahead, spoil the Lord of the Rings away.
Okay, so I like how they put a little more feeling into Lord of the Rings, like people dying. Especially Boromir. So.
Yeah, it was really emotional. The Lord of the Rings had a lot of these really heavy emotional moments, right?
Yeah, but Mythica didn't really have a lot of those moments.
No. You had characters getting hurt, but you didn't feel the emotions in the same way as in the Lord of the Rings. Because maybe having these realistic characters that you really cared about wasn't as important to them in this movie.
Yeah, and also, I didn't really feel like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next, as much as I did for Lord of the Rings. Because, I didn't really feel that as much as Lord of the Rings was. So those are 2 reasons why I think Lord of the Rings is still better than Mythica. But no offense to Mythica, I still think they're good movies.
Okay. Yeah, I think this first one is good for what it is. This is a full-on fantasy story that evokes tons of D&D style tropes. You know, whereas the Lord of the Rings movies really have a lot of moments where there's nothing fantastical going on. It's just people out in nature, and maybe some of them have pointy ears, and maybe some of them are short, dwarves or whatever. But there's not like a ton of magic stuff going on. You know, you've got the Dark Riders and the Hoods, whatever their names are. You know, sorry, I'm not a big Tolkien fan. But you don't have a lot of spell flinging going around back and forth, or spells being used and stuff. Do you remember you're going to tell me what the name?
Wait, I'm going to tell you what the name of the hooded.
I think I just remembered. You tell me though.
I don't know how it's pronounced. It's like wraiths.
Wraiths, yeah, ring wraiths. Ring wraiths. That's right. Yeah.
They were the 9 kings, right?
Yeah, something like that. But anyway, we're not talking about Lord of the Rings. But yeah, lots of D&D style tropes. So like being in a cave in a dungeon and opening up a treasure chest. Remember when she opened up the treasure chest and found some stuff in there? Or like when she casts spells, she'll pull out spell components. You know,
yeah.
That's a very D&D thing, you know, for magic to involve a pouch of spell components and then maybe some spoken words and then the spell happens, you know.
Yeah, well, Gandalf spoke stuff too, but there really was not a lot of magic involving stuff in the first 2 movies.
It wasn't very visible.
Yeah, it was pretty much just like, hey, I'm gonna lift you up in the air without touching you, or whatever.
Yeah,
and then breaking stuff. It's not really like visual effects. There's not a lot of that, but
yeah. And I really like visual effects with my magic. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Oh yeah, I totally feel the same.
Yeah, yeah. And like Harry Potter does really well at that.
That is like the best magic producing thing I have ever watched.
Yeah. Super cool, super cool. And so even though the visual effects aren't as good in this movie, which we're going to get to, they are a lot more frequent, you know. So, gosh, my timer just went off, so I'm going to have to remember I got to do some laundry after this. You can help me remember that. Okay. So, let's see here. Yeah, it's totally unashamed to be steeped in that D&D kind of fantasy aesthetic. It's made for fans of that aesthetic and fans of those tropes. There's a few things that are just kind of weird where they're talking about fantasy concepts that are just kind of thrown in there that fans of fantasy are going to have no problem with. But if this were for general audiences, like someone like my dad would be like, this was weird. I didn't understand what they were talking about, you know. So there's lots of action and predicaments that are typical of fantasy RPGs, so it really scratches those kinds of itches. This is a movie that really seems designed to scratch specific itches for fans of D&D style fantasy. The dialogue, the way people talk to each other, has that kind of faux antiquated fantasy vibe that also feels a little bit stiff because of that, which might have contributed to me not connecting with the characters as much. I'm not sure. The characters do, though, interestingly, I think, butt heads because of their different values and perspectives on the world and on what drives them. Some of them are trying to help save somebody. One of the characters is just in it for money. One of the characters is committed to just doing the right thing and being true to the vows that they make and stuff like that. And even as they're butting heads because of the different things they value, they do develop some respect and friendship through adversity over the course of the story. And so it kind of like, it's kind of got a little bit of feel-good element going on in there. The central character, though, is Merrick. She's like the underdog character, recently liberated slave who, although crippled, dreams of having this better life. But she has this darkness inside of her that she only begins to recognize in this movie, and that's a major subplot in all the movies that follow, 5 total, if I'm not mistaken. So there are, in terms of the story, there are some interesting things to me going on that helped me connect to the experience and stay engaged in it, and make me interested in watching the rest of the movies. Even though I've seen them all, my memory's faded enough that I want. Are you interested in seeing maybe more of this series after this?
I'm interested in seeing like every single one. I enjoy it.
All right, good. Okay, so let's talk about the actors and their performances. What did you think about the actors and their performances?
I think they all did pretty well.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think they all did pretty well. There's nothing really more to be said because I don't want to give something away.
Okay, that's wise. Yeah, it seems to be a choice in this movie to have a performance style that's slightly overstated or maybe a little bit too simplistic and not like layered with subtext a lot. And you know, so I find the performances to fall short of, say, what they would be in a big budget movie or a movie that's really giving attention to character. Like if we go back to the Lord of the Rings, I would say that definitely the performances in the Lord of the Rings movies are much more relatable. They're much more interesting. There's a lot more subtlety and subtext to those kinds of performances. This is Similar to the caliber or style that you might see, well, I was going to say the CW, like CW TV shows, but I think that CW is a little bit harder for me to watch for the performances than this movie. But some of that is because of the shooting style, I think, that doesn't allow for as many close-ups, and so you don't have as many opportunities for subtlety in this movie, because they can only do so many camera setups in a day of shooting on a lower budget like this. But it also potentially could be the chosen style of the performances or the limitation of the actors. I'm not sure. It could be a combination of all those things. But the net result is performances that just don't feel as strong and engaging and relatable or realistic to me. And yet, I still developed attachment to these characters. Were there any characters that you liked in particular in this story?
Well, I really liked... What's the warrior guy's name?
Oh, let me see. Let me jump to IMDb really quick here. His character name is Thane.
Thane, yeah. There are 3 characters that I like in particular. Any warrior character, ranger character, or wizard character. Mythica put all 3 of those in there except for the ranger part was put into the thief.
Yeah, because he was using bow and arrow stuff.
Yeah, but which I don't really like as much. I would like it if he was just like a full-on ranger. This is only my opinion. Sure. I really like those 3. But yeah. Also in my opinion, I'm not really the sort of guy that likes people sneaking around. Not really.
You don't? Okay.
No. I don't know why. I just I think I can. How would I say it? How can I say it? Rangers, warriors, and wizards are more entertaining.
Okay.
So, yeah. I also like to watch thieves, but rangers, warriors, and wizards are pretty much my favorites. So, let's just say that I liked those 3 characters the most.
Okay.
I forget their names.
That's all right. I was going to ask you, is it because the thief, there's more action involved with those other types of characters, where the thief is just kind of being quiet and sneaking around?
Wait, I think you found it.
Okay.
I just like pretty much action.
Gotcha.
That's what I like. And also I just want to add Mythica does a good job adding a lot of that into it.
It has a lot of action, doesn't it?
Yeah, compared to Lord of the Rings, it's more like talking with one another.
That's true.
Yeah, but Mythica puts more action in there than Lord of the Rings does, which is what I like about it.
Yeah, I mean, the runtime is a lot shorter. You know, even a theatrical release Lord of the Rings movie, just one of them is probably 2.5 hours, you know, whereas Mythica is only an hour and a half. But the amount of that time, the percentage of that time that is spent in action sequences is a much higher percentage, I think, than at least the first 1 or 2 Lord of the Rings movies.
90 to 95% is action, would you say?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's that strong, but it can feel that way, I think. It feels like the action is always going and they're constantly moving forward, even as they are taking time for character moments and stuff like that. I never felt like, boy, when is this talking going to stop?
Yeah.
You know? Let's see here. I did develop an attachment to these characters. It was gratifying to see their relationships develop, you know, even if I would have liked the performances to be of a different style and caliber. It was still effective in connecting me to the characters. Okay, so let's talk about what this movie looked like in terms of its costumes, its makeup, its effects, the fight scenes and stuff. What did you think about all that?
Ask me one at a time, because I cannot remember.
Okay, yeah, sure. Okay, so what did you think of the costumes and makeup?
The costumes and makeup was pretty good, actually.
Okay.
I like the look of the warrior. I mean, I forget the names.
Thane and Tila's the priest. Merrick is the sorceress lady.
Yeah,
and
I like the look of who's
Dagon's the thief.
Dagon. Wait, you mean like Moongrun's Dagon? No.
Yeah, a little bit. It sounds a little bit like that, but Dagon instead of Dagon. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Dagon. I like his costume because it's all ragged. It's sort of ragged, yeah.
The thief we're talking about?
The thief.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You see, did you happen to look at the gloves?
Oh, does he have like cut their fingers exposed? So
Yeah.
it's like, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the. I don't know why. It's one of the things my eyes always move to.
Okay.
Yeah, the look for the costumes. Yeah, it always moves to. I always look for the gloves for some reason.
Yeah, that's a cool look. I think they do that so that his palm can be protected when he's using weapons, but so his fingers can be free to do the work that thieves need to do. That would be my guess. And maybe also to work the bowstring. It's easier with the fingers exposed.
Yeah. For example, lockpick stuff.
Yes, totally. Yeah, you can't have big bulky gloves on for doing that kind of work.
Oh yeah.
So the orcs, I thought, looked pretty good, although I think wisely they probably avoided doing close-ups because I would guess on close examination they wouldn't hold up compared to like the orc costume and makeup from the Lord of the Rings movies.
Yeah, the Lord of the Rings is like much more monstery, and a lot more scary. Compared to Mythica, it's just like, oh look, there's an orc. Not like, ooh, geez, it's an orc.
Yeah, exactly. They're content to just show you from far away, and the orcs, they're not trying to scare you with the orcs or intimidate you and make you go, ooh, when you look at an orc.
Yeah, I know.
They're just orcs. They're menacing. They look the way they're supposed to look to be an orc, and that's about it. Let's see. I would have liked Tila, the priestess, to not have hair that looked so nice and makeup that looked so perfect. I mean, she looked like she was ready to be a runway model, I mean, she looked very made up, and it kind of made her stand out in a way that I didn't care for in a world that was otherwise pretty earthy. People had kind of messed up hair, people looked kind of dirty and stuff. Now, maybe there's something... No, go ahead.
I can see that now. I mean, yeah, at first when you were talking, I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, but when you got to, like, all the other people dirty, and stuff, yeah, I can totally see what you're saying. I agree with you.
Okay. Yeah. Now, maybe in the intent of the world, priestesses of her order all take really good care of themselves, or they're very wealthy in that order, that religion, and so they get all the fancy makeup and hair product or whatever, but they don't tell us that in the story itself. And so I'm just left to wonder, why does she look so much more made up than any of the other characters do that we come across, whether they're inside the party or outside of the party? There's like no one else that looks as done up as she does. And so it feels a little bit like that artificial CW product-y sheen, is getting put on her, and I'm not a fan of that. It kind of takes me out a little bit. But the rest of I felt pretty good about the rest of the costumes and makeup. Sounds like you did too. Let's talk about the visual effects, the special effects and stuff.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that it came out in 2014, yet, I'll just say the visual effects weren't as good as I hoped them to be.
Yeah.
Because they looked more old-time than 2014-ish.
Yes.
I mean... What other movies came out in 2014?
I don't know, but
Marvel movies.
Oh yeah, there were certainly Marvel movies that came out in 2014.
Yeah, the explosions looked more real in Marvel movies.
Way more real.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even in the Lord of the Rings movies, which came out in the early 2000s,
yeah,
looked much better in terms of their visual effects than this movie does. One thing that you probably didn't know about this movie was made on a very small budget. They had far less money than other movies do that are released in theaters. This movie never came out in theaters all over the country. It was a small movie that was made mainly to be sold digitally online for people to watch online. We watched it on Amazon Prime, where you can, at this point, and for as long as I can remember, watch all of the movies in this series for free. You can also watch them for free on a lot of free streaming services. If you check like Vudu or some of those other, services that have free options. Tubi TV maybe has them. But anyway, so yeah, I don't know what the budget was, but it was very low. And so the result is that it just visually, by theatrical standards today, it looks bad. There's no getting around that, especially when we're talking about the digital effects. It just looks bad. It's cheap CG. The fight choreography is very simple. I don't know if you noticed that at all, but like when they're fighting, it's not like a Marvel movie where there's all these crazy acrobatics and stuff and crazy jumping around and stuff. No, it's basically like they're lumbering into each other, and then you see them swing, and then one of them falls over,
Yeah, like, it's just like clash a couple times with swords, stab.
Yeah, and like there was one time where a guy got stabbed, and I could even, partly is because I'm just been around long enough that I can see the signs of these things. The sword clearly did not go into his center. It went off to his side, so that they wouldn't stab the actor, but they're trying to make it look like they did. I'm just like, oh, you can't do that for this camera angle. It's way too obvious that you're just sliding it next to him. But it was very brief, and so I think a lot of people wouldn't necessarily pick up on that,
Yeah, I didn't see that.
Yeah, okay. So see, you might not run into the same problem. It was just one time. The rest of the time, it does what it needs to do to convey the action, to move things forward, but there's a lot of cut corners. There's a moment where a giant is supposed to have picked up two characters, and it's a CG giant, and he lumbers toward the characters, and we see him coming down toward them, and then we cut away to see another character reacting to what's happening, and then we see the character's not on the ground anymore, and we just see the back of the giant as he walks away, and we hear the people call out something, and I'm like, oh, so I guess the giant picked up those people? Did you kind of have that same feeling?
Yeah, I had that exact feeling, yeah.
Yeah, and that's because I think they just had to cut the corner. You can't. It would have been an expensive thing to show a CG giant picking up two physical actors and making that happen. That's an involved type of effect and a shot to do, and so they just kind of cut the corner and didn't show him actually picking them up, and just used context clues to communicate to us that the giant had picked up these two people. So that's just one example to kind of zoom in on, but there's little things like that all over the movie. But I felt like they also clearly were trying to give us a lot, despite the limitations. For example, they used repeated use of slow motion to kind of highlight moments of action and try to make it look a little bit cool now and then. There was creative editing to portray the thoughts of characters or magic that was at work in someone's mind, and although it looks cheap, for those that at least want to see magic instead of having it invisible or unspectacular, like the wizards fight in Fellowship of the Ring that basically just looked like a couple old Jedis going at it, but less cool. In this movie, magic is visible. No matter what it looks like, it's visible, it's colorful, and it's frequent, and at times even cool looking, although it's obviously on a budget. So there's kind of a trade-off there.
Just want to add, wait. I forgot.
We can come back to that. If you think of it, we'll come back to it. Let's see here. The creature costumes, I already commented on that. In general, I would say this looks like a mid-2000s television quality production value thing overall. If you were watching The Legend of the Seeker back in the mid-2000s, or some other kind of show in the early to mid-2000s that was using visual effects, it looks a bit like that. And when I just kind of put myself in the mindset of like, okay, let's not expect this to be a modern movie, or even like a theatrical movie that would have released in 2014, or even in 2010, and instead put myself in the mindset of, hey, I used to enjoy TV shows that had this quality of visual effects. Can I put my mind back into that space to accept these effects for what they are, and just to let them move the story forward and show me some cool ideas, even if the execution is a little bit weak, If I can put myself in that space, and I can, for the sake of this kind of D&D aesthetic, itch-scratching movie, then I can really enjoy it for what it is. And I accept that trade-off for getting this unapologetic D&D style fantasy. Just briefly about the music and sound. The budget, I think, is exposed again here. The score is sampled orchestra, effects and sounds, and so. But the score itself is solid and similar to the quality and vibe of, say, like the Baldur's Gate and Neverwinter Nights PC games from around actually the early to mid 2000s. It also adds layers of electronica and electric guitar for a bit in one part of the movie.
I remember that.
You remember that? Which was kind of a nice change of pace and down, just whatever they were doing. It kind of changed up the feel a little bit while that one character was by themselves and pushing onward. It does feel a bit overdone compared to the visuals at times. I'm like, oh man, this music is overselling what visually is not a really compelling moment, But otherwise, it felt very fitting to me, and I think it helps to elevate the whole product and make it feel bigger and more epic than it is just based on the visuals alone. Okay, so let's talk briefly about the themes in this thing. Is there anything of moral, philosophical, or spiritual significance going on that might trigger some worthwhile thought or conversation? I found that each character, has different views and values, and those perspectives are bumping up against each other, and there are, I think, as a result, multiple potential springboards for thought or discussion if you're looking for it. I don't think it naturally is going to trigger that. But the strongest theme centers on Merrick. Merrick wants the gods to heal her, but she is met with refusal because of this darkness that's inside of her. And her pleading to the gods turns into bitterness toward them instead when she doesn't get what she really wants from them. And this, I think, really reflects or parallels, at least, the pain and feelings of rejection that we can feel, even as believers in Jesus, when we ask God for something that seems to be a good request that a loving God should answer and say yes to, but instead we're met with silence, or we're met with what really looks like a no. We can just feel pain, we can feel rejection in the middle of that. The movie doesn't moralize on this issue or make any implicit statements about God, and real-world belief in God. But thematically, I do think that many people are going to relate to that strain or disconnect that they might feel in relationship with God that comes with suffering or discontent. All right, now we have no idea what your preferences are in movies, but if we could travel through time, we would go back in time and say, you want to do a time travel effect with me? I would say, Peter, hey, watch this one for free. It's free. You don't have to pay any money for it. You can at least get it on Tubi TV or Vudu or something like that, and you already have an Amazon Prime subscription. You can watch it on there. You can likely watch all of these for free, and they're worth it for that. You might not binge them and want to watch them all back to back, but maybe now and then, or while you're doing something else. They're rough around the edges, obviously budget, but they offer this unapologetic D&D aesthetic style fantasy with characters that you're going to actually be surprised to realize you care about. So you might consider these movies a guilty pleasure, but they certainly do bring you some pleasure. What would you say to yourself?
I think I'm back in Dairy Queen. I'm watching myself watch a trailer. Hang on.
Oh yeah, we showed him the trailer at Dairy Queen last night.
Yeah. Psst. Hey, you should watch it. It's awesome.
Yeah, so we really enjoyed this for what it is, even with its serious shortcomings and limitations, because of the things I think that we both kind of want from movies. We are willing to put up with some stuff in order to get the things that this movie offers. It has.
Wait.
What?
Can I read the ratings you all?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, so the movie is unrated. It has non-gory violence, some brief and light sexual references, and a few creepy monsters.
Yeah, and Asher, every kid is different. Every parent and parenting style is different. We thought this was a good fit for Asher, and also for our younger son, who's 9. Asher is 12 at this moment. Our youngest didn't stick around and watch it. He kind of wasn't interested to watch the whole thing. But I even felt like, this would be a fine experience to navigate with our 9-year-old. So anyway, for more information about the specifics of the content and, kind of a blow-by-blow description, imdb.com is a great resource. But that's about all we have to say for now. Please like, share, subscribe, click that bell to stay connected to this content. Consider becoming a patron over at patreon.com/spiritblade Blade Productions. And then, of course, I hope you'll join us over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth.
Yeah.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. We've got a ton going on here at Spirit Blade Productions and Christian Geek Central, including our in-depth Bible study for geeks, movie, game, and other entertainment reviews or commentary, live streams, Christian geek news, original audio dramas, and tons more. And on top of all that, you can become a Spirit Blade insider with an influential voice and get access to exclusive content and rewards. It's your involvement as a patron that will keep all of this going and growing, so I want to thank you for your consideration in that. For more information, please check out our Patreon page through the link below at patreon.com/spiritbladeproductions. Thanks for listening.